I was standing in my doorway with a fever ringing in my ears when a man in a tailored suit stepped out of a black SUV, pointed at my little girl, and said, "Where did you get that necklace?" My daughter clutched the gold chain like a lifeline and told him, "Don't touch it. This is my daddy's necklace." He went still, like someone pressed pause on his whole life, like the air forgot how to move. If your stomach just dropped, mine did too. My name is Isabella, and for years I measured my life in rent money and small prayers, in the weight of a child on my hip and the quiet of a room that creaked when the wind changed. I don't tell this for pity. I tell it because one night tilted my world, and 5 years later fate walked up our street wearing polished shoes and a worried face. So let me rewind, not to make excuses, just to tell the truth the way it unfolded. A few years back, I finally caught a break and got hired at a hotel, a small desk in a big lobby, a steady paycheck that sounded like freedom, and my best friend Esther hugging me so tight, I squeaked. "We should celebrate," she said. "Just one night, you deserve to breathe." I said maybe because when you've been poor long enough, you're scared to enjoy anything, in case life snatches it back. But she begged, and I agreed. The club was a blur of bass and colored lights, people laughing like they had money to burn, and me in a simple black dress, trying to believe I belonged in a room full of shine. I had a headache before we left home, took something strong, and told myself I'd be fine. And by midnight, the corners of the room were soft, and the floor felt too far away. I leaned to Esther, whispered, "I need to lie down, I'm dizzy." I slipped upstairs into the hotel above the club, saw a half-open door and a dark, quiet bed, and I let my body fold like a tired tent. What happened next didn't feel like a plan. It felt like two storms colliding. A man came in smelling like expensive cologne and the kind of sadness you keep hidden under a suit. He looked at me the way men look when they think their friends fixed a problem for them. His steps slow, his voice low, and in that fog we reached for each other. Not out of romance, not even out of sense, but out of two broken nights crashing. I didn't see his face clearly, I didn't know his name, I didn't know anything except that he was a person trying not to drown, and I was half asleep, already drifting. Morning is rude when it walks in and pulls the curtains open. I woke up alone, the room quiet, my heart pounding like it owed someone money, and next to the pillow I saw a gold necklace, heavy and bright, like it was proud to be gold, with K. Williams engraved on it. On the side table, money folded neat. I stared at that necklace with a mix of shame and gratitude and something I still can't name, like the metal was whispering, "You'll be okay." I tucked it into my bag, wiped my face, and walked home through a city that didn't care. A month later, the nurse smiled and said, "Congratulations, you're pregnant," in a voice people use when they think they're delivering roses, and I felt the floor tilt again. On the way home, I counted my breaths like coins, 1, 2, 3. How would I afford diapers? How would I afford hope? I told Esther everything. The club, the dark room, the necklace with a stranger's name, the silence that came after, and she held me like truth wasn't a weapon, she said. "We'll raise this baby with love, and even if we never find him, we'll make a family out of what we have." I tried to keep the hotel job. God knows I tried, but pregnancy made the world tilt sideways. The dizziness returned like a bill you forgot to pay. And the manager looked at me with a tight mouth and said, "I'm sorry, we can't keep you." I sat on a cement bench outside with my bag hugged to my chest and cried without noise, because sometimes noise gets you in trouble. That night I took the necklace out of the drawer, rolled the letters under my thumb, and promised the child inside me that I would not run, not now, not ever. Time moves even when you ask it to wait. I had a little girl with my mother's eyes and a laugh like a door unlocking, and I named her Vera because I wanted truth in our house even when it hurt. We lived in a room with peeling paint and a fan that shook when it spun. We shared bowls of noodles and stories, and I worked at a small restaurant where the tips were thin, but the pride was thick. When Vera was 4, she asked the question kids ask when they start noticing other kids, Mommy, where is my daddy? I opened the drawer and showed her the necklace like it was a photograph of a man without a face. I said, "This belonged to your father. It's the only thing he left behind." She slipped it over her head, the metal too big for her small chest, and said, "Then this is my daddy's necklace." And I said, "Yes, baby, protect it." Pattern interrupt. Across town, a different room. In a mansion with marble floors that shined like wet stone, a man was adjusting his cufflinks and searching his dresser, his voice calling out, "Mary, do you see my gold necklace, the one with my name?" He didn't know me, not yet. His name was Kelvin, a businessman with the kind of money that turns heads and the kind of emptiness that keeps you up at night. He'd been betrayed by a partner, the deep-cut kind, and he had a woman named Tricia in his life who wanted a ring more than she wanted quiet. And when she asked her friend for advice, the friend said something that still makes me mad. "Tell him you're pregnant. Men move faster when they think you're carrying their future." "Yeah, that happened," she told him. He believed her. Do you think that's fair? Back on our side of the city, I had a fever climbing up my neck and a headache that sounded like a drumline. I handed Vera a note the doctor wrote and a little money and said, "Please run to the pharmacy. Baby, be careful. Keep your necklace on. Don't let anyone touch it." She nodded like a soldier being briefed and ran out with her sandals slapping the street. Fate took the wheel. Kelvin's SUV rolled down our road. He looked out the window and saw a little girl crying, clutching a chain with letters he had memorized as a boy. And he told the driver, "Stop." He got out, bent to her height, and asked gently, "Why are you crying?" "My mommy is sick. I'm buying medicine," she said, wiping her face with the back of her hand. And his eyes dropped to the gold, to K. Williams, and he froze. "Where did you get that necklace?" "Don't touch it," she said. "It's my daddy's necklace," my mommy said, "not to let anyone touch it." His voice came out small. "Who is your daddy?" "I don't know," she said, "but my mommy said, it's all he left us." "What's your mommy's name?" "Isabella." He turned to his driver and said, "Buy everything on this list now." Then he took Vera's small hand like it was made of glass and said, "Take me to her." You ever watch two worlds collide so slowly, you feel every inch of the crash. He followed her down a narrow lane where dogs barked and shirts dried on ropes, where the walls are thin and the courage is thick, and he stepped into our room like someone walking into a memory he didn't know he had. I looked up from the mattress, saw a tall man with worried eyes and a clean shirt. And even in my fever haze, something about his face tugged at a thread inside my head. He gave me water, spoke soft, waited for the driver, then read the labels on every bottle like he'd promised someone he'd do it right. And when I had swallowed the second pill, he asked the thing that had been burning him from the moment he saw my child. "That necklace, where did you get it?" I told him the truth. I was too tired for anything else. 5 years ago, I woke up in a hotel room alone and the necklace was on the pillow. I kept it because I didn't know what else to keep. A month later, I found out I was pregnant, and the rest is what you can see. He picked up the chain with 2 fingers, just enough to see the letters clearly. Then let it fall back against Vera's chest like it belonged there, and he went very quiet. "That necklace is mine," he said, in a voice that sounded like it was holding back a storm. He told me his last name, and the room tipped, and memory stitched itself together. The club, the fog, the touch that felt like 2 people holding onto the same broken plank after a shipwreck. He blinked hard like he was trying to play a reel in his head that had been erased, and then he said the line. I remember word for word, I can't change the past, but I can make it right now. If it were you, what would you have done? Would you slam the door? Would you listen? He asked us to come with him. Not just to drop off medicine or groceries or money we'd never feel safe spending. He asked us to come to his house so he could show up, so he could be present, so he could be what he hadn't been allowed to be, by ignorance and time and all the ways life gets in the way. I looked at Vera, at her brave chin and dusty sandals, and I said yes. Not because I was dazzled by marble floors, but because sometimes you stand at a doorway and both rooms are on fire, and you pick the one where the water is closer. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. The mansion smelled like flowers and new beginnings. Vera ran on carpets that swallowed her footsteps. Kelvin told me to eat what I wanted to rest, to please call him Kelvin, not Sir. And he lifted Vera and spun her in a circle, and she laughed from her belly like the world had just remembered her name. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe without counting the cost. Pattern interrupt. The front door clicked like a warning. Trisha walked in on heels that announced every step, took one look at me, at Vera, at the way the air had changed, and her smile slipped off. Who are you? I said carefully. Mr. Kelvin invited us. He brought us here. Leave, she snapped. This is not your place. I backed up because I know how to avoid storms, but she stepped forward anyway. She shoved my grip, slipped, and Vera fell against the edge of the gate, her cheeks splitting open with a sound I will hear for the rest of my life. Blood on your child's face is a test you never want to take. We sat outside by the gate because pride is worthless when your baby is hurt. Hours passed slow, the sun a fist pressing down, and when Kelvin drove in and saw us on the ground, he went pale and then dark, the way the sky does before it opens. He scooped Vera up, cleaned the wound with hands that were steady and careful, then walked down the hall like a storm in a suit. In his room, he asked Trisha, "What is wrong with you?" And she said, "Who are they? Why are they here?" And he said the sentence that changed all our lives, "That little girl is my daughter." Do you think that's fair? That a lie about a life could push a real life to the ground? That a woman who wanted a ring more than the truth should get to decide who belongs where? You tell me. That night, the house shifted. Not colder, just clearer. Kelvin came downstairs in jeans and a simple shirt like a man who had put his armor in a drawer. He stood with me on the balcony with the city lights blinking far away, and he said, "I never proposed because something inside me was empty, and now I know what was missing." He wasn't cruel to Trisha, he was finished. He told her real love doesn't arrive wrapped in a trick. It doesn't need lies to breathe. And he ended it. She cried. He didn't budge. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do to a lie is stop feeding it. The days that followed were not a fairy tale. They were a schedule. Kelvin didn't toss money like confetti and call it forgiveness. He showed up breakfast with Vera while she drew necklaces in crayon school pickup, with a smile that looked new on his face, bedtime stories, with voices that made her giggle, and long talks with me about the night neither of us fully remembered. We used words like consent and responsibility and repair, not to point fingers but to make a map so we wouldn't get lost again. We promised Vera would never feel like an accident, that we would tell her the truth when she could hold it without it crushing her, that respect would be louder than money. Yeah, that happened. We wrote rules on a piece of paper and signed them, two people choosing to grow up in front of a child. Of course the world noticed. A blurry photo at a grocery store. Kelvin pushing a cart, me laughing. Vera wearing that gold chain like a medal. And the internet did what the internet does, called me a gold digger. called him weak, called us everything but a family. I cried in the shower so Vera wouldn't hear, then came out and sliced oranges while Kelvin said, "We know what's real, let them talk. You know what I mean." One evening, Vera tugged my sleeve and asked a question that didn't have an easy box to put it in, Mommy. Does the necklace belong to Daddy or to me? I knelt and said, "It belongs to the truth, and the truth belongs to us." And she nodded, like that was enough, because kids understand the shape of love better than we do. Kelvin walked in with flowers he bought from a lady on the corner, the cheap kind, wrapped in newspaper, and I placed them in a cup and felt like a queen anyway. So here's where I leave you, but not before I ask you to argue with me a little, because good stories should make your heart shake and your head talk back. What do we owe each other after the worst night of our lives? When a lie is used to trap love, can that love ever stand up straight again, or is it bent forever? Does money make it easier to apologize? Does poverty make it harder to be forgiven? When grief and chemicals blur the line where yes becomes no, how do we raise our sons and daughters to draw their lines in ink and not in sand? If it were you, would you have walked into that mansion? Or would you have waited for lawyers and papers and tests until the sun went cold? Do you think Kelvin got off easy, or did he do the hard work that counts? Do you think Trisha deserves compassion for being scared? Or do you think fear is not a license to break other people? For me, the moral is simple and stubborn. Real love can't be forced. It doesn't need tricks to stand up. It grows where truth is planted, even in poor soil, even when you have to water it with the tears you don't want anyone to see. A billionaire lost a necklace and found a daughter. A woman lost a job and found a voice. A little girl wore a piece of gold like proof that she belonged to someone she couldn't name yet, and then watched his face learn her features like a mirror waking up. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to my life without flinching. Tell me what you think in the comments. Do you think that's fair? What would you have done? Where are you watching from? If you've ever had one object carry the weight of an entire story, a letter, a key, a ring, a photo, tell me about it. I'm listening. Hit subscribe if you want more stories told. The way people actually talk, share this with someone who needs to hear that truth can walk in on an ordinary afternoon. And don't forget to take your pushback, your own chapter. I'll be in the comments, answering, learning, and yes, protecting a small gold necklace that somehow turned into a bridge.